what we've got to realise is that beekeeping is an industry in Australia, and the protection of it is something we all have to take part in. With backyard beekeeping these days, the emphasis is on just collecting the honey. With the recent development of the flow hive, it's meant people can access honey without actually managing their bees. And it's a concern because there are diseases and things that are spread by bees through honey, and if these hives aren't upkept and managed correctly, what can happen is the hives die out for an unknown reason. It could be American foulbrood, and neighbouring feral hives can get into that honey and they transmit the disease. And it's a concern. So I think education for the backyard beekeeper is something that they really have to take seriously. There's more to beekeeping than the honey. The bees are an animal. They work collectively as a hive, and obviously you have to manage that hive and understand what's happening inside that hive beyond what comes out of it for honey, you know. So bees, everyone has the opportunity to have bees. Bees are very, very forgiving. You don't really stuff it up too much unless you really go in with no idea. I started off small and started playing around with bees when I was a young kid, collecting swarms and having fun, you know. And I've learnt a lot from bees, the way they work together, you know, how hard they work. The work they do is very important, and I think with the way things are going in America, we've got this sense of the bees are all dying and, you know, the world's going to go upside down. But, you know, America, they used a pesticide that they didn't really know much about. They didn't research it and ensure that it was actually going to be good for the bees, and a residual amount of that pesticide got into the pollen and it killed a lot of bees, and they put it down to colony collapse disorder. So they figured it out, but the bee population will always sustain itself. We will have to consider the fact that, you know, every part we play to benefit bees is certainly a good part to play, and a lot can be learnt from bees. Like, we have to really consider the fact that they are a very good pollinator. They're beneficial to your garden. They can provide you with a sweet treat if you look after them nice, you know. But, you know, bees are like the European honeybee is a feral species. They certainly do take up residence in trees that could belong to our native animals, you know, marsupials, birds. A lot of parrots breed inside hollow logs, and the bees do compete for them. As a beekeeper, you should really consider the fact that these bees do swarm. That's their natural way to reproduce. And what it means is you lose a lot of bees. It's detrimental to your hive, and also it's detrimental to the wild animals that take refuge in these hollows. So I mean, you do have a responsibility to make sure that your bees aren't causing a problem to your neighbours. The breeding of bees, we've domesticated bees, European honeybees in particular, for their to be more docile and more productive, which makes an opportunity and provides safety. So we need to consider those things. Alternatives to having European honeybees are Australian native bees. We've got 1,700 species of Australian native bees, 11 of which are communal, which means they work together in a group. But a lot of them are solitary bees and wasps and things. So I mean, if you're an avid beekeeper or someone that really cares for the environment and want to get pollination going in your backyard, possibly start with bee hotels. So you offer a variety of different bees a place to set up a habitat, and it's quite simple, and you don't have to worry about that aggression that the European honeybees have. But if you really like honey, I suggest, you know, possibly buy it from a beekeeper that's in the business, knows what they're doing, and that way it's probably the most sustainable for the beekeeping industry in Australia. It's a thing that can really go wrong real bad. We've had breakouts of AFB. Every beekeeper has had it through their place, their apiary site. So I mean, it's a very common disease, and once it starts getting out of control, it's like a bushfire, you know.
So what's APB?
AFB. It's American foulbrood. It's a disease that's spread through the honey. It affects the younger larvae, generally between 3 and 4 days sort of age, and it's transmitted in the honey. So it gets into their stomach and then it just kills them, and they die within the cell. And yeah, the foul is from the actual smell of it. It's a very foul smell. So, well, in a real bad case it is anyway. But the bees don't stand a chance, and we haven't found a way to cure it, you know. So, unfortunately, those spores, there's about 1 billion spores on the pinhead, like a needle pinhead. and they are very contagious to the bees. It's a bit like this coronavirus, you know. So yeah, I think the backyard beekeeper, certainly, if you're willing to put in the effort to learn about the bees and understand them, by all rights have them. But if you'd like to skimp and get into a flow hive and you don't care so much about the bees except for the honey, like you're doing the right thing. You're increasing the population of bees, but you've got to treat them like they're an animal, and you've got to not take them to the vet, but you've got to be the vet. You've got to be able to open that hive, know what's going on inside, make sure they haven't got chalk brood, make sure they don't have AFB, make sure that they haven't got hive beetles, wax moth, the whole works. You've got to make sure those bees have enough honey to go through winter. A lot of people rob their hives before winter, take a majority of that honey, and then the bees are left to starve. So there's all sorts of different things that you need to consider. And ultimately, if you don't invest the time to learn about them, you're going to fail, and it's sad.